to renting this vehicle?
They're not paying much.
Their space, they're portioning their space.
They're portioning their space. So they've got a feasibility study. When they came to us, they already had their feasibility study in place. They came to us and they said, we can pay X amount of dollars a month in rent. And we said, we can make that work. I mean, it's, like I said, it's not what you
That's
would.
$43,000.
That's, no. That's our taxes a month.
Well,
Do you want to comment on it, Brett?
It's just I think it's a really excellent example of a public-private partnership, that can be looked at as a role model in the state of Iowa, actually. And, I know we've agreed to pay $45,000 of that rent up front here, to get it started and off the ground. And I don't, are we talking about the American Relief Funds here?
Yeah.
That's what I assume. I don't know exactly how those funds can be utilized, but, I kind of think that, at least in Iowa County, we should use it in areas that have been impacted by COVID-19. And of course, I think retail obviously fits the mold. I think childcare probably fits the mold pretty heavy. So in my opinion, those two things for our county, and childcare is something obviously is a problem everywhere, and it just is not gonna go away. So, and it's been harder hit from COVID-19 than probably some other not-for-profit organizations, I think, as well. So, not to say that there's not others, obviously there's a lot of others, but I think if we can make this successful, it's gonna be a really big deal for our county and the community, the surrounding communities. So,
What kind of time frame do we have?
Yesterday?
Yeah.
No, I meant for operation.
Yeah, so we are working right now to, I got a directive yesterday, Sandy and her team were meeting with their attorney to go through the lease one more time. I got a directive from my end to, let's get this thing, put to bed. The contractor would like to start September 15th, so we're looking at 90 to 120 day build out. So somewhere close to the first of the year before they can start bringing kids in,
So,
and
is this something that you'll come back with a proposal, or will W4Cs come back?
that's why I'm here.
here's where I was waiting for everybody to hash this out. Number one, at the ISAC conference yesterday, they made it very clear, you give money to one daycare, you give them to all. So we have to be careful about contributing to one daycare and not make that an available opportunity to all of them. I've thought about different ways that we can do this, and I made a PowerPoint presentation, if you don't mind if I do that later, about all of the stuff from ISAC and all the webinars that I've done. I also read the 42-page document from the U.S. Treasury about this, just to try to get an idea of what are we actually able to do with this money. So later I'll go over it in detail, but I think that we're gonna have to look at like a per capita or per child. We're gonna put so many dollars per child and how many of your daycare holds, you get that X amount of money. I mean, that's probably would be the fairest way to do it. And then number two, it's coming down to where I think we need to have some kind of formal application, some formal plan. What are we doing? Which I'll talk about later, but I think we need to get really organized, because I don't want, there are other sectors like grocery stores and things like that were also hit hard through this. And I don't want them to think that we're playing favoritism to one entity over the other.
Well, if I can take my outlets hat on,
Yeah.
put my development hat on.
Right.
I think from a county perspective, I know the development organization is working heavily on child care needs, because we can't expand. That's one of the biggest reasons, and I've talked to Abby, I've talked to probably all of you about this. We don't, if, and I'm just gonna make a hypothetical, so whoever's taking notes, this is not real, this is hypothetical. Say Bear comes and they say, we're gonna add.
Can I ask, you keep saying Bear, is that?
Brett.
Brett Wilson.
Oh, okay. Well, it's the company.
It's yes,
Formerly Bond Center.
yes.
Okay, I just
Formerly.
didn't know what Bear was. Okay.
So-
B-A-Y-E-R.
So if any organization in Iowa County comes to development or to the county and says, we wanna add 120 more jobs, that's amazing. But if we aren't getting those 120 more employees to live in this county, we really don't see the full economic impact. So again, in my hypothetical situation, Brett comes and says, we're gonna add 120 more positions, and all of those people live in Coralville because we don't have A, housing, or B, childcare, then we don't collect property tax from that, they don't buy their groceries here, they don't, spend money here, their kids don't go to school here. We don't see the full economic impact of that. So, wearing my development hat, childcare is a big thing in this county that we need. So, I say, if that's the way it works, that's amazing. Because if you can help us put these 88 childcare spots in, and we can help build a facility in Marengo, which is also much needed with that money, that's a great impact to the county as a whole. So, I think that's an amazing thing, that some foresight on somebody's part to build that into the structure of that funding. So, it's something the county needs, so say yes to childcare, is what I'm
That's
saying.
one of the very few categories that has literally no red tape to it. You can do for-profit, non-profit, whatever, childcare, anything, as long as it's equitable.
Right.
But you can't be equitable, you can say it all you want to, but how are you gonna make it work?
What do you mean?
Because that's gonna take a huge chunk of change, if we contribute, and then you bleed it out, and you do put it per capita, it'll be astronomical.
Well, you can't, I wouldn't base our per capita on their request. I wouldn't say, let's say they want 150,000, I wouldn't divide that by 88 and then give everybody else the same amount.
You just said you have to
We
be
would have to
fair.
set it, we would have to set it we would have to set that and then they get what they get. The goal would be, let's say we wanna do 250,000, I wanna say, let's say we have 2,500 kids in the county. 250,000 we say we wanna set aside, right?
Okay.
So then whatever that amount is per person, then they get that times 88 for that facility. Well, really W4Cs would get more than that because they would get it for their other location too, which has how many spots? Like
Can't remember.
100 too. So they would, the people that house the most get the most.
I'm not trying to fight, I'm just saying, being fair is not always fair.
Well, it's not fair. How
Well,
are you giving everybody the same
I
amount
guess
per child?
what I think you're trying to say is, it isn't somebody, no matter what you do, someone's always gonna feel like they got less. No matter, even if as equitable as you try to make it, there's always someone who will feel like, well, I only have 5 kids in my daycare, so I only get this much.
Right,
I think that's
that's where I'm
just,
trying to come from.
yeah.
Right,
But that's how I think it should be, because if you're a daycare managing 5 kids, and let's say we do 100 kids, $100 a kid, $500, that's pretty fair, because you don't have the overhead that they have. How's that not fair?
But then you just made it not fair, I was trying to be fair, because otherwise they're just getting 80,000 as opposed to,
Yeah, but they're not managing 88 kids. How's that not fair?
you see what I'm saying, I'm being devil's advocate.
I know you are, nobody's opposed to the project, so.
No, I'm just trying to,
That's good news.
yeah, I'm not opposed to it.
That's just an
I'm trying to
internal
get
fight
some-
that
That's something
we'll have to figure out.
That's all the details.
Yeah,
Right.
life is not always fair, so.
So when do you, anticipate having,
So do you have a number you want?
well,
600,000.
600.
She said 57,000.
I'm sorry, your voice came from over there. I was looking over here. Sounded strangely familiar, Brett.
Honestly,
Just beyond, shoot,
I'm gonna shoot high because that's.
that's exactly what is,
250,000.
okay, that's what we need. That's what we need is a number to work with, and is that what you were thinking, Brett? Because obviously you were thinking 700, and
I'll leave that up
I'm
to
now
her. She
taking
can
Brett
have the
with me
number.
he's now on the development board.
yes.
But is that only for the Williamsburg facility, or is that also include any money for the Marengo?
It's just a Williamsburg facility. I'll speak for it. Just for,
So
Yeah,
stick
I'm all for
around
right
for
now.
that. So, you'll have valuable input too, because I'm looking at how do we design an application process? How do you spread it out to the masses that this money is there? Because it's unfair to tell her, yeah, you're gonna have this money, but not tell the Marengo one that's for me,
right,
So just stick around.
Well, how
I
long
assume-
when is that gonna be? I may need to shift my schedule,
right.
so.
And Abby's brought up the childcare thing for quite a while now.
It's definitely a need in.
Yeah, and
And it's a need in all rural.
in all
counties.
account, yeah,
So it does have, I think you have to look you know, from our development perspective and this shared partnership that we have with Benton, it impacts other counties around us, because we've got, you know, I mean, how many employees do you have that don't live in Iowa County, that come here, commute into the county every day? They're bringing their kids, you know, here if there's more available childcare, because it's the same situation in Benton and Amon, you know, probably not as much in Johnson and Lynn, but probably
And
more.
honestly, there's a business that wants to grow by 400 people in our county. If we can, you know,
Mhm.
help make it happen, then, I mean,
How much money is on there for housing, because that's our other big issue that we need.
The housing's got more red tape, cause it's gotta be in disparity populations, so we can't just put money into housing, it's gotta be, we have to go by the US Census tract, make sure it's in a place with people under the poverty line or a certain amount above it.
But that doesn't
Racial
track with-
inequality.
But that doesn't track with, which I'm not saying that that's not right or wrong, but I'm saying those 400 jobs are gonna be, I mean, and I know we have another, I don't know what you're talking about, but we have another project that's a high quality jobs, so those, you know, those are people making $40,000 a year or more, where are they gonna live?
That would have to be out of our own, like a different, like our own general fund,
Okay.
not
So
just.
we'll get in the weeds if we go there, so.
We're thinking,
All right.
we're finding there are a lot of projects that are potentially gonna qualify for this, so. It needs to be examined.
thank you, Kristen. Thanks, Brett.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Nick,
Mr. Chair, will you be going back to communications later?
we can, yeah.
Thank you.
So we got back coming in at 9:45 in the morning.
Who's coming in there to set the date on that hearing? I just will have it on. The bridge, in Green Township, they're doing the false work, so that's still moving, slow week though with the rain. Still grinding down F67, getting closer and closer to the end, and we'll come back and do the corners. And the box, which we talked about, was pushed back a week, so, our crews kind of just stayed out of there this week. As far as the road maintenance goes, we did pull off of completely regrading roads this week. It's the first good rain we've had in a month, so we did a lot of grading. Like I said, we had $150,000 in rock come in, and a lot of that's going right back out, spot rocking, so. Pretty much just trying to get the roads, cause they haven't had the rock, it's been turned to dust, so. The salt shed is ready, so we'll order salt for winter here in the next week or two. We've also getting our equipment, the V-plow for the end loader. So right now there is an issue that when, equipment goes down, we're still having parts that are on delay, like a long delay. So we're gonna make sure that we have a spare tandem and a spare motor grader. But we are also gonna make sure that that end loader is good to go this winter also with a big V-plow on the front. So when we have two motor graders go down, we can send that thing out and, break open the roads. And then also.
Is the V-plow already in inventory? It's not something
Yeah.
that have to acquire, right?
No, we have an extra one, an old one, so they're going to, they're gonna make it work. They're gonna modify. Yeah. Yep. And we went through all the other inventory of all the chains and everything else, so. Yeah, it may be hot out there, but be ready for winter, right? And also right now, like one of the single axles is down that pulls the total patcher, so we're gonna do what we can to modify the other one, so we need that total patcher out here too. So we'll be going on F52, we gotta go down to F67 where we're grinding, and, there's a couple other spots. So, we have 2 weeks worth of work there, so we need to make sure that we make sure that we get that done. So modifying more equipment. And then today, there were some down trees we're taking care of, we're also taking care of other spots for, getting ready for harvest. The combines want to go through and overhanging trees.
Have you pulled off with Mary's Road totally?
Well, no, not totally, but we had to, that's a bunch of motor graders, so we had to pull that, everybody wanted to go hit up their own territory this week, because, yeah, I mean, they haven't been able to grade the roads in a month, so. Patching on M Avenue, I'm hoping that by the end of today, they'll move on to a different road, that they're going. And the project inspections, and we'll be sending out another set of plans later next week for the Walker Bridge to have somebody else come in and drive piling for those this winter. So we will remove that bridge, somebody will come in, do the piling, and we will finish out the project ourselves. All the steel is here, or most of the steel is here, we don't
How long
have
a
it.
bridge is that?
It'll end up being 35 feet.
Because I mean, it's just a box, place for a
No,
box.
it drains over 3,000 acres, so Knoxville.
What's your anticipated completion date on that day?
Well, I don't know, I mean, we haven't sent out the bid to have piles driven.
It's a spring.
I'm hoping for this winter. I don't wanna, I would prefer November. But we'll see what the costs come in and when the contractor can drive the pile.
Does that one more harvest in it or not?
No, it's 6 tons. 6 tons, 3 tons.
Well,
It's
it
got
is,
no
but
more.
it is, yeah.
Not even if you're hauling a barge box.
Yeah. So those plans will go out next week, and we're spending a lot of time out there on that costly bridge too, trying to get that figured out for next year. So,
How do you do on dust control? Did everybody get it? Did everybody get caught it?
don't know, I
You
haven't
haven't heard?
heard from Heartland. I think that Heartland then was able to get out because,
I think they put
We
something.
both did. I got
yeah,
mine.
because it's different.
They
I
put
mean, they
something-
told me up front it was gonna be a different color, and
Right.
so I had heard from some people, so I believe everybody should have.
It was different, but it's working.
Well, that's good.
I will not be here next week, so Matt will be here, we need on the plans to open up the, driving piling on the bridge on N Avenue.
What's on N Avenue?
Willie, what's his name? It's a 11-ton bridge right now, it's down a dead end. We made that run around.
Lily's.
Willie? Yeah.
Yeah.
They said Willie.
I get him.
It's Lily Willie's.
Yeah. There's a lot around right now.
Right, okay.
So, that should take off the posting. Hopefully that will last many more years.
Perfect.
Thank you, Nick.
Thanks.
Alrighty, yep, you guys have a good one.
Go back to communications. Alan?
Gonna be meeting at 1:30 today with Kate Robertson and Abby and Carla Marks, city administrator, Miranda. We're gonna be going out to the old private Iowa location. And, we've got a potential business that's being developed there. They signed a 4-month lease. They're grinding windmill blades. Vesta is, Fortune 100 company, largest, windmill manufacturer of the world. They set up shop here in Marengo, and Doug Kinsenball has purchased that property, and Vesta has been brought in, and they've got a 4-month lease. They're cutting the blades up in dry vans in Colorado and Texas. They're bringing them in, and then they're run through a grinding system to be ground down into 2-inch shreds, and then they go onto a belt trailer, and then those belt trailers go right into Green America to power the Continental Cement Kiln in Buffalo, Iowa.
Nice.
We're,
How big is that pot out there?
I'm sorry,
How big is the land out there?
it's about 4 acres, we're using about 2.1 right now.
Okay. I was wondering how much of it they had started using already. Very cool, and you said it's a 4-month lease?
At this point, and if it works well and they can get more bids, they may continue on for a 2 to 3 year period or more. Right now, it's employing 5 to 7 people.
Very good. Cool. Other communications? We should talk about our auditor.
Well,
Yeah.
what's the status?
Well,
I was kind of taken back, shocked me at, last
everybody got
Friday.
the heads up on it, so.
And, I didn't see that one coming, but, I wish you the best of luck, and of course, I called you three, asking what do we do, what's the process, and everybody responded back to me, so I understand we have to be, we got 40 days to appoint a, assessor, or an auditor. And, with that in mind, I just wanna know the specifics, what we had to do, it was new for me, and I wanna make sure I speak intuitively to what is going on, so I can answer the public's questions.
So,
And Sarah has done a lot of research, but yes, you have 40 days after, I leave to either appoint somebody or call for a special election.
I think we should probably let the general public know you resigned to take a job at the sheriff's office as a civil
Deputy?
deputy.
Yes.
So Lori Miller is retiring and Jessica applied for the job and got the job there, so she,
So,
She's leaving without me.
right,
I'm leaving.
go across the street.
Yeah, going back to where I started, 'cause
Yes.
I actually started there in, 97, so I'm actually kind of going back to where I started. So that will leave a vacancy in the auditor position. The board can appoint someone, or like I said, they can call for a special election. If you do appoint somebody, the public does have the right to request a special election within 14 days of the appointment. So, yeah,
That's a petition then, right?
yes, yep, you'd have to petition for a special election.
Which is 10% of the voting populace, correct?
Of the last
Of the last
general,
The last general election,
Yeah,
which was a presidential
Yeah.
election.
which is with 1,300,
yes,
petition signatures, approximately
Yeah.
13,000 votes in the county last November.
We
I
didn't
think
do
you're
that.
right.
yeah,
Um,
I think you're right, yeah, that was about 50,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
so,
yeah,
President.
it was a good.
They always-
Yeah, so yeah, I didn't put anything on the agenda yet this week, but I can put it on for next week.
Yeah, that's fine. I just wanted to let the general public know so that
Yeah.
it was not, yes.
And obviously,
And
we're
thank you
leaning
for-
towards appointing, right? Not having a special
Hope
election,
so.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's,
because that seems strange to have an election without an auditor, you know, like.
seeing as how she's the one in charge of elections.
Yeah.
so your term would have been up,
Did you,
I just ran last
you
year.
just ran, so this appointment then, would it
I don't
be
know,
good?
if I'm not with you.
so the appointment fills out your term, right?
Fills out the
Or
term.
does it-
No, it would have to go
Go
into
to the
the
next-
next general.
So next
election.
is
That's
2
it.
years.
Oh, I think
Yeah.
so.
next-
So they'll have to do a midterm.
And next June,
Right,
this appointee would have to
Run
run,
If
for
they want
election.
to.
that's what I
If they
wanted to
want to.
clarify,
Yep.
because I thought you had, right,
yeah,
Okay.
so,
And we have two interested in the position, as I understand?
I don't know, I know of one, but I didn't know
I
there
know
was
one
two.
and one that maybe, but not hasn't committed or just asked the question. So, but hasn't formally said yes or no, that they're interested. So,
Maybe, Alan, I think you'd be a good point of contact to see if they are fully interested and have them submit something in writing, if they are.
is, people are aware of it, I mean, yeah, I mean, you talk to specific people, so.
they're non-committal at this point, so,
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not, when somebody's non-committal, I'm not
Yeah,
sticking their name out there, because
Okay.
they're literally non-committal.
okay.
So,
Maybe the board could come down and check in with our office, maybe get some ideas, like of who might be interested, if there's someone down there that's interested.
Yep.
Just to kind of get an idea, maybe.
So. I want to thank her for her service.
I'm still here,
Yep,
just not here.
thanks.
Happy to do more communication.
I don't think so, other than the presentation, but I don't know if we have time, because Becky will be here in 2 minutes.
We'll do that afterwards.
Yeah, it's not long, but,
No, that's fine. We'll just do it after lunch.
yeah. I can't talk that fast.
So we can take a short recess if everybody wants to for, till Becky gets here at 9:45.
You have, what you need to sign.
On this one,
I'm only giving this much space already, though.
thank you.
It's on March. Yeah, later.
Yeah, it took a couple meetings. So, getting to know how to talk about it. How to read a sentence, even how to what makes sense about it. Writing down, without going to
Put an X on it, but I didn't put
That's
my
right.
job.
She never got it. Yeah. I did put it in my calendar. What was that again? The date. Okay, that's in my calendar.
Maybe it's, I just signed out, I'm not doing anything, I'll probably be there. Whatever Andrew says, I'll send it to you.
Invited CC.
Yes. We got.
Meeting back door.
Hi, Becky.
Becky.
So you guys got my updated sheet, just so we're still looking for a driver. Not getting any current, and nobody's even asking about it anymore, so. I wanna throw out there maybe possibility. I wanna pursue a part-time dispatcher / driver. So I'm working on the ad for that. It was never anything that was previously advertised for. We just promoted a driver with skills into that position. I don't have anybody right now that's, one, interested in it, or B, with the skills. So I'm working on a job description. So depending on what kind of response we get from that, is there potential to make it a full-time driver / office position?
You have it in your budget, right?
No.
Or no, you don't have, well, I mean, you have money in the room in your budget.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't have anything set for that. So,
It's one of the few departments where we have money.
yeah, yeah. Something to think about, food for thought,
Until she brings up radios.
well, yeah. That's at the bottom,
For a reason, I'm sure.
yeah. The RA is in the same boat we are, they're short-staffed, so they're not doing as many outings, which is gonna, it's double-edged, so A, I'm using drivers that would normally do those outings to take clients to appointments, so that's helpful. But at the same time, the RA people aren't going out and about, so we're not supporting them. But that's gonna come back, and we're gonna have to have drivers available for that too. You saw the big number of school kids we got?
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a lot of school kids, most ever, I believe, I haven't gone back and
I
checked.
thought it was like in the eighties.
I think we had one year while I was there, it was like 98, pushing 100.
Is it a lot of cities, or is it rural that are not taking advantage of the school buses that are offered by the district?
They can't be on the
Williamsburg doesn't haul them. The Williamsburg School District doesn't want them on the bus if they're not in kindergarten or higher. So these are mostly 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds. A lot of them come from the daycares within the city. A lot of them are parents who just wanna make sure the kid gets to school and they want us to pick them up at the front door and get them to school,
So those participants, are those rural or are those
mostly city, mostly town kids, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of Williamsburg, a lot of Marengo, I mean, Williamsburg has 3 preschools that we support. So you're picking up at this one and this one and this one and you're dropping off and it's pretty crazy, but we're working through it.
I'm just trying to understand what the situation is, if we're offering our rural children that are going to school, that are school age, are they not taking advantage and using the school district, school buses provided by our taxes?
No.
Or are they doing that? So you answered my question.
Yeah.
Thank you, Becky.
You're very welcome. So, bottom of the list is the radios. I was not involved with any discussion of this previously, but we've been having some issues where our radios are very staticky, poor reception. And in talking to Josh Humphrey, who is the guy to go to for radios, he said that it was offered at one point and we declined, the transportation department declined. I don't know who, what, why, doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant at this point.
Yeah, so, I don't, did I attach these quotes to? No, okay. I'm more than happy to leave these for you guys to review, but they're quite a chunk of change.
How are they compared to your budget?
Well, I haven't gotten into it that far to see where I could squeeze it out of.
How much are we talking, what are these?
Let's see, the low one is 28 and the high is 34. And right now they do have a slight discount going on, like a rebate of $700 and some, but we have to act before the end of October. I doubt that's gonna happen, but,
Yeah, $700 is just a
yeah,
drop in the bucket.
but that's per radio.
Oh,
And when you're talking 11 radios, it does
okay.
add up,
Yeah.
so. Yeah, and I can email these to you guys too.
Would you?
Yeah, I will do that when I get back to the office.
Well, obviously, we're gonna do something because the system is outdated and
Right, and that was what Josh said
the upkeep
too.
is not feasible.
Yeah, and I did kind of do some, I don't know, Googling around, you would say, and there is a way you can use your phone for that, but then everybody has to have the same compatible,
That's a terrible idea.
yeah.
We got a radio system that we paid for that will reach every corner of the county.
Yeah, but can we piggyback onto that?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, Josh said we can add on to what they have.
Do they want to put up more repeaters and
No.
stuff like that?
No, there'll be more maintenance because the maintenance is already done through emergency management, which is a win.
Yeah,
And so the infrastructure's there.
We just think about the
It's
radios.
just a matter of,
And if it's through emergency management, potentially, is there a possibility using the ARP funding for the,
But it's not through, it's through transportation.
through transportation?
I
But we're looking on to.
radios, but there's some red tape on that one too.
well, the flip side of it is if she's got extra money, I
Some
mean,
of it.
that's a
Yeah.
budget, we have to be negative in, she can't make money, so
Yeah.
if she's got the money, we need to burn it.
and we didn't do well on that last year.
Right,
Right.
and that's what I'm saying, is so if you've got it
Spend.
to spend, I mean, you know,
Let's make sure that these guys understand and are here though about burning it. If we don't use it, it goes back
It goes back.
to
The federal
the
government.
federal
the
government.
federal government, not the local county tax dollars, okay? I want to make sure
Transportation,
that's
we cannot
understood.
we cannot show a positive, no matter what we do.
It has to be efficient.
If we do, then we just lose out on the other end
Right,
Right.
with our funding from the federal and state,
they
so.
take it away.
Becky, did you see my response I sent to you earlier this
I
morning?
did, and I was able to contact the Benton County office and found out what they had for staffing. So they have,
This is if you basically see it full-time versus part-time, and what the other counties like our size to do.
yeah, and that was the only county that I got hold of this morning, short notice. But, they're comparable size. So they have their director, they have an office manager, they have one full-time driver, and then they have a part-time office person / driver, along with 13 part-time drivers.
So the majority are all part-time too.
Yeah.
And it's constantly that revolving door for you, and I like to find some stability there, so you focus your energies on managing the department, not trying to always having to find,
Right,
hiring an employee.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm hoping that we can possibly take a look at that and, see what we can do.
The problem is, a lot of your drivers are of retirement age and they only want to drive for a few more years.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and it's a good gig for the retired people, because they're a couple hours in the morning, and those guys, they love the preschool, and I want those kids.
I had one-
Kids love them.
Yeah, I have one younger driver who is, he's got kids at home yet, and he would be very interested in the full-time position if it were 2 years down the road. Because he's wanting to get the little one into school.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, right now, there's no daycare expenses, and I understand his point.
Yeah.
But, he says, right now, I wouldn't be able to, but if it was 2 years later, it'd be a definite yes. So the other guys, like you say, they're all retired, they only want, just something to keep busy, something to get them up in the morning and make them get going. But, I just haven't found any more.
Right.
Those
Well,
kind of-
maybe if we advertise for like a full-time position, we'll get a different candidate, no, a different
Exactly.
type. Yeah,
Exactly.
so
And
that's
you know,
where that's looking for that.
and even a part-time position for an office dispatcher, I don't know what kind of candidates you would find for something like that. But when you put the full-time out there with the benefits, that's gonna draw in a lot more applicants.
That's what I think with the driver portion too. Maybe all your drivers, like I said in that email, don't want to be full-time. Maybe they just like that part-time, when come and go. That's awesome. But maybe we need to have that core drivers that can provide you full-time. I don't know. It's something that, I don't know.
Can you send, the quotes, would you mind sending us like what your budget's looking like right now, like how much money you have in there and?
Right. Yep. Okay.
That way we can know,
Right.
before you come back and then we try and make decisions.
No problem. I will provide that.
Thank you.
All right.
Any other questions, or
I'm good if you're good.
we're good with?
We're great, huh?
Thank you.
All right, happy Friday. Thanks, guys.
Let's do it.
Did you tell Luke that he's next?
Oh,
He's coming. Okay, yeah, sure. I don't know if he'll know this.
We're just.
It's
setting up
consideration, so.
Oh, I'll see.
Right to you again.
Try to be when I come over to this office, Behind me is, new assistant county attorney, Robbie Pandit. He's been with us for 2 months now,
4 months.
4 months. Time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun.
We're thrilled to have him. He's a good fit for our office, and we got some real intelligence in there for once.
That'd be a nice change of pace.
Won't it? That's what I thought. And some young brain cells too. What we're doing this morning is, we know we're required, you've been through that new floodplain ordinance number 36. And of course, to enact it, we have to publish notice, set it for hearing, and also, enacted if we decide to do so at that time. And of course, as you know, we're pretty well required to do this by the DNR. All kinds of horrible things are gonna happen to the county. The cities and towns are required to pass an ordinance too. It'll be, I'm sure, somewhat similar to this for the incorporated areas. And they have the same threats you do it around. So it's Big Brother telling you what to do. What I need to have you do today is make a resolution to consider the ordinance number 36, floodplain ordinance, and set it for hearing and authorize the auditor to publish a notice concerning the hearing date and time. And I'm thinking that I'd like to have it set for the first hearing on the ordinance for September 10th. Sometime in the morning if you told me to fill in with the notice.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose a motion for.
Let's ask the auditor what her book looks like real quick.
I just don't know if the holiday, if I can get it published, but I can. And all 3 papers though, it has to be.
I think so. This time around, we're not gonna publish, you know, normally the ordinances are small and they just publish the whole thing, but,
It's too long.
Yeah, no.
we almost have to take out our bond issue to pay for the publication fee, so. In lieu of that, I've prepared a short summary of the ordinance that we can publish instead of that.
Okay.
And we can do that as long as the whole ordinance will be in the auditor's office if somebody wants to come in and read it or get a copy of it.
So the motion should be to consider the publication.
We should publish a notice on the possible enacting floodplain ordinance number 36 and authorize for a hearing on September 10th, 2021 at.
I don't think I can get it published next week, because it has, for Des Moines Register, I have to send it by Thursday.
Yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, let's do it on the 7th.
And if I want it guaranteed, I have to send it on Tuesday.
All right, let's do it on the 17th then.
Okay.
Is that what your motion is, Alan?
Sounds like. At 10:45? Is that what time works
fine.
for you?
Yep.
So I'm gonna try and hit this.
Yes.
The first time. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose that, we enact on the consideration of floodplain ordinance number 36 and set a public hearing on the morning of September 17th at 10:45 a.m.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Spot on, you did it. Said wait your turn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right.
That's all I have. I do have another matter to talk with you at 10:15 when we get there, I think.
Well, I think we can go into it if you want.
It'll be fine.
Okay.
Well, I know there's an issue over here on how you place things on the agenda for the board meeting. I think your position, John, is that you're going to rule whether or not an item goes on the agenda that's proposed by another supervisor.
I do it with the board's permission. I don't do it on my own.
What do you mean?
It's whatever the board as a whole decides.
So when did the whole board as a whole decide on what I wanted on the agenda yesterday? Did you call them all and have a special meeting or?
I didn't, but when we do the appointment of the chair, Kevin, you wanna talk?
The chairman controls the agenda. It's been that way since ever.
It's not
I
in
didn't do
writing.
that.
It's not in writing. And ISAC attorney disagreed with you.
That's fine with the ISAC attorney, this is how this board is handled. This is how every board in the county.
Well, it's
But
not in
I'm aware of
writing.
it.
It's not in writing anywhere.
So every board in the county needs to come up with a policy that says it's the chairman's agenda.
No, when I called,
I think it would be a good idea that if that is the way it's going to work, we should put it down in writing.
So,
Policy agenda.
in lieu of doing that, if we put items for consideration for next week's agenda at the bottom, which we did in the past, That way, if somebody has something they wanna put on the agenda, we can actually bring it up during the meeting and vote on it.
That's the whether it gets put on the
Yeah.
agenda, following the meeting.
And that way, the whole board just decides
Yeah.
ahead of time.
So the issue with that though is if we do that, nothing can be added between Friday and the next Friday. So the raw broader thing coming up with the pay scale came up, it was not on the original agenda on Wednesday,
Right.
so that wouldn't have been able to get on.
Right.
Nor was the fireworks application.
Yeah,
So you have to decide how you're gonna handle that.
so there would be no opportunity for the agenda to change from the Friday before.
It'd be the chairman's decision to put on there, and anything that we want to put on there, it would have to be voted upon. So if those people contacted the chairman directly, he's got the right to put it on our.
That doesn't make any sense.
I guess I don't understand why we, as elected supervisors, are not allowed to, as members, equal members on this board, and we are equal members on this board, why we're not allowed to produce something to be put on this agenda. I've never been on
yeah.
a board, never in my life have I ever been on any board. I've served on numerous local, state, regional, national boards. Have I not ever been able to be allowed to put something on the agenda, ever.
I just think that it's funny that the two things that got rejected to put on the agenda are things that we have been talking about this whole time.
But we talked about those last week, did we not?
I wasn't here last week.
We talked about
Did
them
you guys
last
make a
week.
decision
I
last
wasn't
week?
here last.
Did you
It was
vote
the
on it?
consensus of the board at that point, not to do anything.
Last week, that's what the
was
consensus
unanimous.
was, so
At that point in
Is that in
time,
the
that she
minutes?
wanted to bring something up, I'll support her bringing something up to the board.
Is that in the minutes, Kevin?
We say it again, I made minutes as a consensus of the board, and Alan, you remember that,
This is
you
what I'm
agreed.
getting at. This stuff is
But did-
undocumented. Why
but
did
did
they?
you agree?
I agreed that we had nothing to go on at this point in time.
You didn't even know the cost yet. I found out afterwards.
She
You
went
didn't
to
know
the
the cost.
ISAC meeting and.
But
It doesn't matter. It
So
came to
under
consensus.
communications, the board talks freely. We can talk about anything you wanna talk about at any given moment. Just doesn't mean we can take action on it. And if the board feels like that it's something we wanna take action on, then the board can say, put that on the agenda and take action on it.
Okay, but what
Because
if,
nobody's restricted from what they talk about ever during communications or as a board member.
well, I
It's not,
understand that,
they're
but,
not restricted.
but if it's not on the agenda, you can't take action on it, so it's really, it's not gonna happen. You know, what I mean, it can't happen without being on the agenda, right?
That week,
So
but
there's,
next week it
what's the
could
point
happen.
of talking about it then? And that just delays everything by a week, and this compliance officer thing, I don't care what we do with it.
Right, I
But
get
this is a
that.
big deal, this art thing is a big deal. We have an auditor that her last day is next Friday. How are we gonna get through the reports after that? Who's gonna get the US Treasury login? I have sat through so many meetings and so many webinars that every other county is freaking out about compliancy. So I wanted us to consider it, and I wanted us to consider it before Jessica was gone. That is why I wanted it on the agenda so we could take action. I don't care if we don't do it. So I don't get what your problem is with me wanting to protect the county and have it on the agenda.
It's not my problem. I
You're the
don't
one that
have-
said don't put it on the agenda.
We
It's
discussed
your
it last
problem.
We
week.
discussed it last week, that's why we didn't put it on the agenda.
You discussed last week that we're not gonna hire a compliance officer. But
That's
that's
right.
nowhere in the minutes. How am I supposed to know that?
It's right before the adjournment, it says no action was taken, the board discussed the hiring of an American Rescue Plan compliance officer.
And no action was taken.
Yeah, no action was
That doesn't mean that you said you
And
weren't.
no action was taken, right? We
That's,
didn't
that
say
means
we
maybe
weren't
you're
gonna
waiting to
do
hear
it.
on the price and how much we do, no action.
No action taken means we didn't hire anybody.
Yeah, last week, but this week I'm coming with pricing, I'm coming with ideas. Did you guys go out and look at how much it's gonna cost? Any of you? Did you, Vicki?
No. Easy,
So how many?
You told us $150,000.
What?
up to
Up to
$150,000.
Yeah, and I
$150,000.
nailed it down. I nailed it down.
But didn't
I'm
hear,
working
didn't Karen Kurt and Easy Cog say that there was really no reason to hire somebody because they're literally giving away money and they're not turning anybody down really on what they spend it on.
Oh,
It's
that's,
very loosely done on how the federal government's regulating the money.
and so that's why 4 hours of the ISAC conference was dedicated to compliance? You really think that they're gonna dedicate that to that if there's no?
ISAC is a lobbying firm. They are our lobbyists in the movement.
So you're okay with just willy-nilly spending this, it doesn't matter if we're compliant or not, let's just do it, and then later on, when,
I think
Yeah, we're gonna
what
audit
Karen's
and take
saying
that.
from Easy Cog, East Central Council of Governments, is it doesn't have to be that complicated.
But it actually is that complicated, because you have to do SAM registry. For all of these vendors and contractors that we're using, we have to vet them through SAM. You know that, I told you that.
Right?
Do you know how to run that?
We haven't seen them, we're already signed up with that.
Okay, and you know, well, someone's gonna know how to run that, and we know exactly what contractors we could do and which ones we don't. But,
We haven't hired anybody to do anything yet, but
yeah, but you
right
can
now,
use it.
we have till December of 2024 to spend the money,
Yeah,
So right now, we switched totally off topic.
right?
Yeah, so I still feel strongly, none of us should be allowed to put anything on this agenda.
yeah,
And this will be the fourth time we discuss this?
Probably
Yeah.
will be the fifth or sixth or seventh
and
until we have
who
this
keeps making
policy
it have to
put
be a
in place.
discussion? You, not us.
It's not me, is it?
No.
It's not me. Vicky, is it me?
So you three are in conjunction that the chairman should control the board.
That's why he's the chairman.
So why did people vote for you? That's my question. What is the point of voting for someone if one person's really gonna control what the board does?
But if we discussed the topic last week, why would we bring it up again this week if nobody had any interest in it last week?
I wasn't here last week, so how am I
That's
supposed
not
to?
our, that's not our fault you weren't here.
And what's the problem about conduct? It could be a 5
We
minute,
can
we already talked about it.
talk
right now.
about it, we're just not taking action on it.
Can't we just vote on it? What's the problem about having an agenda and voting on it? You don't want your name written down on that vote? Is that
I'm
the
pretty
problem?
sure it's an open record, everybody knows. I mean, it's not a secret.
Well, you know, putting that aside, I think we should have a written policy, John.
Okay, what do you
We're
want?
gonna have a new auditor.
Yes,
And now, one supervisor calls Jessica and says, I want it on the agenda, you say no. And then it's not her decision,
Right.
that's not her job. She should have a policy that when somebody wants to put something on the agenda, she looks at it and decides, yes, I can, or no, I can't.
okay,
And since you seem to know how you think it's currently being done, I think you should meet with me, you and I, and we
Okay.
should put together a written policy.
Okay.
And then we'll bring it to the board, and the board can vote on it or modify it,
perfect.
okay? I mean, we need something, we're gonna have, excuse me, we're gonna have a new auditor, she ought to have a policy so she knows what she's supposed to do with agenda items. And if you and I talk, you can explain to me what we've been doing, we'll talk about what we should put down in writing, bring it to the board and let them discuss it, and then come up with a final policy,
Perfect.
okay?
I just think it's ridiculous. I called Scott, Mahaska, Story, Benton, Madison, and Lynn County yesterday. All of them were like, no, we don't have a policy because we don't need one, because any supervisor gets something on the agenda. So, for some reason, those chairmen don't have a power trip, and it doesn't matter to them.
Will you be voting on, can I speak or no, I'm sorry?
No.
We let people speak earlier, so it's just under the chairman's discretion, apparently.
It's not a public forum, and she came in with a specific topic that we were talking about. It was a grant request for an art project.
But she wasn't on the agenda.
No, but you and I both brought her up because we had a meeting with her, right?
I didn't have a meeting with her.
You didn't have a meeting with her?
I called her, we were chatting,
Well,
we
I
were supposed
called,
to have a
I called
meeting.
and talked to her too.
Yeah,
So I did not meet with her physically, but that's what that was, I mean, it's just like when somebody comes in and has a problem with the engineer. We try not to limit what people can do, but we're not gonna have an open forum where people just come in and comment on the process of government. That's not what we're here for.
write that down.
Will we ever be
Right
able
to
to
the
say
paper.
anything? Will we ever be able to say anything?
You can get on the agenda, anybody can call and get on the agenda.
So I
But I
talked to you
can't.
about getting on.
You
the
can get on
agenda.
the agenda, but I can't. Oh, boy, that was great.
Yeah, I wanna put on the agenda, John,
And for what topic?
for this policy as far as who can put something on the agenda.
Well, we're gonna meet and there's not a policy yet, so there's nothing to discuss.
So you can't get on the agenda, actually.
Right.
Well,
So we know.
you can come here and discuss it when I bring it over and the supervisor can discuss it,
Okay, and then who's going to vote on this?
the supervisor.
And the supervisors, is John going to vote because there would be a conflict of interest with it?
I don't think so, no.
Why, he's voting himself in.
I don't know that he's voting himself in, he's voting on a policy that who gets put on the agenda that's gonna be adopted by the board of supervisors.
And he's the chairman of the board of supervisors.
I understand you, I also have a lobby, where did you go?
I don't, I did go to law school, sorry, sir. But I, here, you
You'll
don't have
be
to go
free
to
to
law
come
school
in,
or
and when
something.
we get some type of written policy, to bring over here for them to discuss, modify or adopt, you can come here at that time and talk about it. But I don't think he has a conflict of interest to discuss it or vote on it.
Luke, are you voting on the policy whether they have it or not, or you're voting on the language of the policy?
We don't even have a policy yet to vote.
We have an oral policy, which nobody seems to quite understand, so we're gonna make it up and write. And John and I are gonna work on it, I'll bring it over here, present it to the board, and they'll decide whether they want that or something different. And then they'll vote on it.
So
And
once
then
that's
in the
voted on, you
future- in
can
the
talk
future-
about, this topic won't come up again once that's voted on.
Right.
Well, I wouldn't think so, that's the whole idea, we're trying to come up with a policy and put it to rest.
The only way it can come back up is if the winning side brings it back up. Just like any motion, if a motion is made, once it's been passed, the losing side cannot bring it back up to re-vote on it or rehash it, it's a dead deal. Unless somebody on the majority side decides to bring it back up.
If new supervisors are elected, can it be brought back up? Right?
Absolutely,
Okay.
Sure, any policy can be changed.
any policy can.
So you get a hold of me, I'm gonna be gone for a week on the 3rd, so why don't you get a hold of me sometime the week of the following?
So how do we proceed until then, Lou, because we don't have a policy?
I don't know, you're gonna have to do what you've been doing. You said you learned about it. September, what is it? I don't, there's not a September calendar up there.
So,
13th is a Monday.
Okay. So why don't you meet with me right around the week before?
Okay.
Like, give me a file, just a call, make it known. We could be Labor Day, what, the 5th?
six.
The week of the 5th, later on in that week, give me a call.
Okay.
And we'll try to get something drawn up to bring to the board that following Friday.
Okay.
So it's my understanding from Jessica that you're getting some kind of written statement or opinion that you do control, that chairman controls the.
I don't control anything, I do what the board tells me to do. The majority of the board rules on it.
We've never voted.
I didn't invent any of this. I just became chair last year, this was all in place for 30 years before me. I'm just following what was here before. I sat in that chair a year and a half ago, and that's how it was when I was on the board.
You still haven't answered my question, where's the written statement? Where are you getting that from? I
No one
really-
else has never needed it written before until you asked for it.
Well, it's
So
just
now-
like everything, should we do all of our
Literally, the
contracts
HR attorney
orally?
told me, he said, I've never had a county that has this much problem with an agenda.
Well, when I contacted ISAC and the ombudsman office, they said this is a problem all over the place. That they, I mean, I said.
Well, that's why we're gonna make up a written policy, we're gonna vote on it, then we'll know.
And it'll be
what to do.
done.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out in the meantime, I have a written statement that says something, and if you're producing
If you,
something,
it says right here at the bottom of the agenda, items for consideration for next week's agenda. If you have something, we can bring it up and vote on it.
what if it comes up in the middle of the week, though?
Well, then it's gonna have to wait a week.
So I want all of your stuff, though, it's gonna have to wait a week, and your stuff, and your stuff, and your stuff, all of our stuff is gonna have to wait a week now, no
That's
adding
not how,
anything.
that's not how it's been done.
No adding anything in the agenda until that, unless it's on today,
But
Friday.
That's not how it's been done.
Well, that's how it's gonna be done,
No.
because that's unfair. We don't have anything that's giving you this
So,
authority at this
so
point in
the,
time.
so when Rob's trying to hire somebody, it's unfair for him to be able to bring the compensation package in again.
Well, it's unfair that he can do that, but I can't get anything there. I'm an elected official, I'm on this board, I have the right to.
Rob and I have had the discussion, and he's on a state board, and he had something he wanted to put on the agenda, and they wouldn't let him put on the agenda. And he's also the chairman of the state board, and he controls the agenda. So, I'm not making this up on my own.
And who would,
I think it was the 911 board that he's on. You can ask him about it. He'll be here in a little bit.
So you get a hold of me that week and we'll,
I will.
maybe like Wednesday,
Yes.
so we have a little time, we're gonna put it on the agenda for that Friday, we have to have something to put on.
Hammer it out.
Well, yeah, why don't we just plan on Wednesday, but you call and make an appointment that day at a set time.
Okay.
Good. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
We'll take a recess.
I sent him an email. Rob. Tell him, I sent him an email, see if he can
So that's probably what's going on until then.
So you had to have a change of pace.
There you go. That's what it was.
I'm guessing she's probably leaving.
Grandma's name.
Maybe she come
My biggest problem is if you do a celebrity one,
Right.
We had I did a breakdown on
Yeah.
She's complaining because she doesn't see them in the
Then I don't see it. On the other side. There's so much that's within the dark side.
Yeah, and that range is, Wednesday, that will help.
You're not the, what do you call it, less than a cat.
Little bit, a little more out a little bit today. Because that, actually, that worm is getting so dry, the stalk is starting to suck the nutrients back out of the crop. Cedar and everything.
Last night was great.
Well, so far, still standing pretty good too. Oh, I haven't. They got hit again there. Well, I haven't taken the corn reel off the corn head. The augers on the side, I'm gonna leave them on there. But, I said, well, better wait a couple of weeks yet. So we know the freeze, and then they'll take the reels off.
They showed some on TV around Old Line. They were walking through it, and it wasn't even me.
Engine, like that, I'm trying to stay away from the deck. Buy a new job here today, get the fuel tank, get the deck. That deck stuff, you know, that'll freeze up in the winter time too. If it isn't getting right and everything. I went over to Monticello, 260 miles around, bought a tractor, and it comes to just because it was one of those that was, well, it was 2012, really hours, and it doesn't need I did this thing right, almost better than their right one. I mean, and we were getting 20.7 miles right. About 70 Oh, yeah, you know, I wanted to get rid of the airplane before I got caught. But the biggest thing was,
And it's hard to come up I'll be careful not to drive on the spot. If it does, I got a heated garage out there. Yeah.
Calling you back to work. Sheriff Ryder is here for civil deputy compensation.
So, I think everybody should have the budget sheet. It's a unique scenario because we're talking about somebody who's already an employee of the county. So as I explained in my remarks, when you look at the step-ups for these positions, you're looking at time employed. And so those things really don't have any utility in this. As far as the longevity that's paid, the only thing I can do is look at her start date, which is 1997. I don't really have anything else to go by. So, I know that a question would be, is there a break of service in between the hourly employee versus elected and then back to hourly? I don't know the answer to that, but I think if you look at the chart, it's not a huge difference either way, because the bulk of her time at the county is hourly anyway, so.
In the past, you've always been able to transfer your
Years
of service.
Right, so the previous, well, the current civil went to the assessors and it came back.
That's right.
The only difference is you went from hourly to hourly, where this was elected, but I don't know that would make a difference, because you're still an employee of the county, so.
You should never go elected back, we should just go forward.
Right.
Rob, did you get my inquiries this morning I sent you?
You know what, I've been busy since I got in, so I have not seen any emails.
Okay.
I can look at them right now if you are.
Well, I was just curious how this position, how it compares to other like positions in other counties for salary.
It's really tough to compare that because most counties have a business office and a civil office, and ours is combined, so it's hard to compare because.
In the sheriff's department?
Yeah.
They have a business office in the sheriff's department?
Yeah, they usually have, like, if you go down to Washington County, you go into their business office, and they have people that, deal with claims and payroll and all that, and just the normal day-to-day business. Those people are not civil deputies.
Okay.
So we don't have that here.
Okay. One of the other questions I posed was, is there a job description for
There
this
is, yeah.
position?
There
That I don't believe I've seen it, maybe it was shared.
I can send it to you, no problem.
Okay. And then the other question I think I had is, how does the pay rate on this position, how does it compare to your, well, and I can probably look that up, you probably shared that with us, but I was hoping you would have seen it, but with your deputy.
Well, it is a deputy position, that's where.
Your deputies that are on the ground.
Right.
The deputies that are out in the public.
So back in the early 1980s, when they wrote the contract, that was basically the basis of everything that we have going forward, they didn't differentiate between the two. It was either you were a deputy or not. They didn't differentiate between whether you were on the road or in the office, very much like a deputy in one of the other elected positions. The difference is, financially that I see, is they are not part of protection class. So they are under the rule of 88, where deputy sheriffs are under the rule of 50, 22 years and 50, so they get to retire much earlier. So that's the big difference in compensation.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was such I didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
It's the rule of what?
Rule of 88.
Rule of
which is-
88 I got.
Right, and so the deputy and sheriffs have it's basically you get your largest jump in payout at 22 years with, at age 50, if you have 22 years and 50, that's kind of the point where people start to look at retiring, and then percentage-wise can continue to rise up to the 30th year, and then after that, it kind of stalls. So between 22 and 30 years is where most of those people would retire without regard to the rule of 88.
So how will that transition then for, okay, Jess, so you'd still be applicable since you're not, you'd still be rule of 88 then? For your,
Yes.
for retirement potential?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So your recommendation for the salary then?
Yeah, like I said, I just followed, when we, as you know, we just lost the union contract, but we've essentially kept the pay scale. So I'm just taking it off of that scale. There's nothing, outside of that scale on this document. Ordinarily, there'd be steps. The pay scale, in my opinion, was probably written more with the certified officers in mind, because they talk about probation and getting through the academy, and then you get a raise after the academy. Well, there is no academy for this. It's not.
watershed with the academy.
No.
Is this a salaried or an hourly position?
I look at more of this as a salary, but it does break down to an hourly for things like overtime. There's a number for the overtime rate, but
Yeah.
it's essentially salary.
She's not punching a time clock.
Technically, she is.
Oh,
Very, just like the road deputies would. It's not an exempt salary employee. Really, there isn't, well, there's 3 in my office that are exempt employees. That's myself, the jail administrator, and dispatch administrator. Everyone else is salaried / hourly. They still get overtime.
okay.
Anybody have any other questions for Rob on that?
When does this position start? Because Lori she'll be in training
Right.
for a period of what?
To the end of the year.
Okay, Lori's done December 31st.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have room in your budget to pay this salary and Lori's?
And we talked about that here a few months ago. I think we probably do. I think it's something we're gonna have to keep an eye on, but I think we can. But depending on what this year brings us, you can only imagine, but, my hope is that we would be able to do it within the side of the budget. It might be borrowing something from overtime or something from patrol, dispatch, or jail or something, but in the overall number, I don't think that's covered.
Unless suddenly all your new cars come in.
Yeah, that could always happen. I don't think it will, but,
I don't think so.
well, that's how we had to carry over last year.
Right.
Cars don't come in, so.
The other thing, I was looking at the county handbook about transfers, the 90-day probation, I'm sure you're aware of that and
Right.
have that in the contract, right?
Well, so we don't have the contract anymore, so that's a good question for you, is ordinarily those things are functional employment with the county. So is there a probationary period for someone who's still here? I think so, under that transfer section. So, yeah, that, I agree with you, I think you do.
Just wanted to touch on that.
Right.
That'd be a great question for an HR manager.
Yes, it would.
Yeah, I think that the transfer is what makes it.
Yeah, the transfer said, yeah.
Anybody have any other questions for, your motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the, position as, presented for the wage as presented.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Good luck, Jessica.
Apparently you're free.
Don't say free.
Well,
You're getting a good employee.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we're getting her back.
Yeah.
you started out there a long, long time.
I'm not old, I'm like a long one.
You're the one that said it.
Anything else while I'm here?
How's your oral, everything going okay?
We're trying really hard to get vacations out. I've been working most of the summer with my chief deputy, and command staff now because we couldn't go off before. So we're trying to clear out vacations.
Are you
That's,
still trying to hire?
we are trying to hire part-time right now. We ran an ad for that and we got what I would consider to be 2 maybes out of it that are not certified. I do have a person out of the Benton County Sheriff's Office that's interested in working part-time for us. So there's at least moving in the right direction. I'm meeting with those folks this coming week and hopefully we'll be able to put something together. But that's gonna be our challenge for the next few years. Getting people to apply for these jobs.
Yeah.
And I think you're looking at that for both jail and dispatch as well.
Yeah.
This was kind of a unique thing because this was a more of a clerical job. And so I wasn't sure how that would go out, but we did have 42 applicants and I interviewed 20.
Did you really? Well, hats off to you for that. A lot of times people won't take that much time to interview a candidate.
You know, I like to, especially when, you know, I was so surprised to see that many. Really.
That's
I
great.
didn't know how that would come.
I was gonna ask you how many you had.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Did your department take a hit with COVID, like as far as employment, like number of employees?
So, no, we never had, you mean as far as somebody getting sick or anything?
No, like, were you down like on your number of employees, normally you hire like 40 or you have 40 on staff, maybe you could only get to 35 because nobody would.
No, the big thing was when we were hiring for the deputy position, we just couldn't get anybody to apply for it. And so we had, at the end, 6 applications, 3 of which were uncertified, which failed testing. And then we ended up with the 3 certifieds that applied. And the only reason we had those applications was because the environment in the Johnson County area is not exactly pro-law enforcement, so there are people in that county leaving to go to other counties. And so we were able to take advantage of that because we have, I think Iowa County has a great relationship with law enforcement and the public, and I'm very proud of that. And so we get to benefit from that, but still only 3, I've been sheriff now almost 13 years, 12 and a half years. And in that time, I have still yet to have a top 10 list of test takers. And since I started in 90, when I applied, I had 68 applicants to go against. Today, you can't get the top 10. And that started years ago. We could talk all day about what we think started it, but it is what it is. And so I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy for the anti-cop people who don't like law enforcement and think they're being mistreated by law enforcement. When you can't hire quality people anymore, I'm afraid that's gonna become reality, that you really are gonna get officers who are not good at what they do, because you're now hiring anyone who shows up. And that, we don't ever wanna get that here, but it's a challenge for law enforcement area. And the fact that we are supported by the public is so wonderful. I mean, we have people dropping off cookies and stuff all the time. And so we have great relationships. But that doesn't equate to people, young people looking at this career and saying, I want to be part of that.
Well, I was just curious, cause part of the ARP funding can go to paying for staff, like getting back to full capacity, so I didn't know if you had a,
No,
Oh,
the
well,
only, the
we
only
can
issue
fill.
we've had was vacations weren't being used because it was, well, we were running pretty hard and we couldn't afford letting people off. And as COVID slowed, we opened it up again, but now we've got all that vacation that needs to be met up, so, you know, I've been
Same problem the
basically,
ambulance was in.
yeah, and I might like, just, you know, not to cry here, but my command staff has been off most of the summer. I mean,
Right.
it's been me going through, you know, case logs and reports and approving and proofing. So it's been long weeks here this summer. So if anyone wants to, you know, give me a vacation or something, that'd be awesome, but, you know.
Thanks for asking though.
Yeah.
That's why you make the big bucks.
Right. No, it's been really busy. Our caseload is through the roof and,
Are you thinking about using it for additional, for attraction, Abby?
what'd you say now?
Are you thinking about using it for some of that, for potential attraction to bring in?
Well, you can do that,
That's
you
what
can
I-
do that, but I was thinking more, you can use it to pay the salaries of the ones, like to get it back to
right,
full staff.
yeah. And we didn't lose staff and we didn't have to fill, we did get that filled. Now, I did get, I had some communication with, folks with mental health saying that there's some money that needs to be spent there, and we're looking at what we can do. We do have some medications that
Right.
have been used, for prisoners. Most of them not though, because they're feds and they're covered under their health plan, but we do have a couple that do need medication, and some of them are pretty expensive, so we're talking about that, try to offset some of those costs, but I don't have any big ticket, items that we can cover with that.
Kitchen?
Yeah, the kitchen.
The kitchen, absolutely, yeah, I think so, and so that could come at a better time, because.
Do you have any plans going to get that?
Well,
I'm assuming just get a hard number of how much that's gonna cost?
yeah, what we're thinking about doing is, you know, I guess it all comes down to, how do we want to approach this? Do we want to go out and just come up with what our plan would be, is like, what should the building look like, how big should it be, what should it have in it, and then put that out as a, to solicit bids, or what? I mean, there's certainly things we have to figure
You
out.
have that lot across the street, right?
Right.
Are you thinking a new kitchen?
Well, I don't know that there's anything we can do with the one we're in.
No.
And the one that we're in is,
Yeah.
It needs to become a storage
but the,
location for all of our files in the basement of the courthouse, I think.
Yeah, and that's what the upstairs serves for now. So, and that's, you know, the issue with that building is the steel and the paint and all that stuff, it's just, you know,
it's a.
1890.
It's
so-
horrible, it's horrible, it's deplorable conditions, I don't know how they get anybody to work, to be quite honest.
But one thing we do have going for us is the engineer's office is a portable building. Could we move that building to the lot? So you don't have to truck food across the street.
Yeah, ideally, the engineer should be across the street, the food stays on the same side as, because in the winter time, you're trying to take food
Yeah,
across the
that-
street,
That would be an issue.
and you could keep it all indoors, if you could,
Could you have it through the salary board? or-
You could.
we should have never built a jail around a mobile home,
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
but that's a long time ago, so.
Well, I think there's some creative opportunities we really need to buckle in and take a look at there.
Yeah, and I know moving buildings is expensive, but when you're literally scooting across the street, maybe it's not that bad.
And as the engineer, surely he can come up with a program.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
Is he
it's anything.
No.
I thought we're probably just breaking some news to it maybe or
No.
something, I don't know.
Through your applicant. Does anybody have any other questions for Rob? I do, so Alan, ask him about your agenda, cause he's on the NRA board, he's on the state,
What was that, the NRA? Or the-
I'm chair of the Iowa 911, commission,
oh,
EMS, yeah, there's some local boards.
But
Well,
anyway,
there's contention here about supervisors, we should be able to put anything on the agenda we want as elected officials. And John was mentioning that you were chairman of the board and you weren't able to put something on the agenda.
so what we do is people will bring things to me as agenda items. And some will get on, some won't. Sometimes people wanna put something on there because they think that's the way to deal with a problem, and then I'll explain to them that maybe that isn't the place to deal with it, there might be something else, so. But essentially what I do is I come up with a budget, or I'm sorry, an agenda proposal, and then the first order of business is to vote on that agenda. And then either there's an up or down vote. If it's an up vote, we go with the agenda. If it's a down vote, then you have to vote on what changes you want to make to the agenda, and then get that passed. But that's the first order of business in our meetings, is the board votes on the agenda as proposed.
That's what we do here though, we vote on whether motion to approve today's agenda or not. So it's the same thing.
It is, so,
But John was mentioning that you wanted something put on the agenda and you were unable to do it. Is that what you're
What
trying?
board were you on that you wanted something on?
interoperability board.
There you go.
Yeah, so that was back in the radio days where, Motorola was treating counties our size like dirt.
You're trying to jam it down our throat.
They were, and I wanted to bring it to what they call the ISIX board, which is the Iowa State Interoperability Board. And they would not put it on. And so what I did was I just had to go and basically hang out at board meetings and do the best I could talking to people.
You were on the board though.
Not at that time.
Oh,
No, not at that time. I did get appointed to the board after that.
and you were able to put whatever you wanted to on the agenda.
No, I would
that time
still,
or not?
no, I would still have to make a proposal to the chair. And then the chair would either put it on there or not, or when I do the chairman of the board, I ask for any discussion. Someone might there at that time propose to put something on the agenda, which then if passed by the rest of the board gets put on the agenda
At that very meeting.
at that very meeting. The only thing that I always caution people when they do that is that we might not be able to take action on it because it wasn't part of the public's.
Gotta be published.
Right.
What is it?
24 hours.
So it becomes new business, and then the next time it becomes old business, and then we can vote on it.
That's all, I just.
Well, my name's Robert, so, Robert's your old guy. I wrote it.
Go back to Amanda.
Jess, this is the guy you're gonna go work with.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And quit stealing our employees.
I'll try.
Alright, you wanna go with this or do you wanna finish it? We got a fireworks permit and. Well, let's do this, cause then Kristen can leave. She's kinda hanging out.
I cleared my whole schedule for you.
Alright, American Rescue Plan, I did an overview sent out when I had public here that wouldn't know exactly what we're talking about.
If you guys can't see, you can turn on the lights.
American Rescue Plan is a US Treasury fund. 65.1 billion went to counties across the entire nation. Every county gets a certain amount based on the $200 per capita allocation. Iowa County's getting 3.1 million, as you can see there. In brief, I'm not gonna read this all, but the overarching theme of the program is to help counties, cities, states, mitigate their future response to a pandemic and to help us brace for another one if one should come. So really a lot of these things are targeted at reducing the spread of COVID-19 and then stabilizing the markets or the avenues of business that were hit the hardest. So big thing at ISAC's conference was we need to strategize. And I just wanna make sure we kind of get organized as a county on what we're thinking, have a streamlined application process and a notification process for people. The way that they kind of approached it was you come up with ideas, we calculate how much that's gonna cost, just like Christie came with her amount, we want to figure out how much can we really do with the $3.1 million. Ultimately, the Board of Supervisors does decide on that, and then obviously we invest. My suggestion, which is just my opinion, what I think would make sense to go about this after doing these webinars and things would be to have the Board of Supervisors have some kind of workshop where we talk about what have we all been approached on so far. Then we would have an internal department head think tank, which would be all of our department heads. Because ideally we want to take care of our internal resources first, things that reduce the taxpayer's burden by filling money into the budget for projects that we already have. And then we could go to, once we know how much money that is in that, we could go to external applications and see about what businesses would like funds, and then obviously a final decision on the Board of Supervisors. So these are some of the big ticket items that other counties were using their funds for. Obviously mitigating exposure, I'll go into all these in a little bit more detail. Daycare, frontline worker grants, broadband expansion, future trails, and conservation and tourism. So mitigating exposure, air quality, our windows need replaced next door, they can't open, so we can use these funds to replace our windows to make ones that open, so that way in a future pandemic, we can open them and get airflow in there. It's a really huge investment, so we're not having to raise tax dollars to cover that, so things like this are little projects that I see are beneficial for us to do. PPE, it's gonna be expiring, I don't know where we're at with that, obviously Josh don't know more about that, but it's best to kind of wait till the end of the spending period to replace that, so that way we have it for even longer yet. And then restoring employment is also another option. So the air quality, we talked about that, PPE, I already kind of did all that, didn't I? Restoring pre-COVID employment, so that's what I was talking about with Rod. There is a special section in the interim final rule that talks about we can be using these funds to restore public sector staff to their pre-pandemic levels, and the negative economic impacts that we resulted from the pandemic. So that's an option for our department heads to be thinking about. Investments in daycare, big topic of the hour. One of the less restricted opportunities in the funding, it's got just a tiny little blurb that's like, give them money to daycare and get on with life. But it has to be on an equal opportunity basis, so we have to make sure whatever one is offered, we are letting everybody have a piece of the pie. Frontline worker grants, that was the big thing, was 2 hours of the seminar on Wednesday was talking about how to back pay our public health department employees for what they had to go through being outside the conditions everyone else did outside drive-through clinics too. It's just a suggestion, like I said, these are all just ideas these are the main topics that they came up with at ISAC and the work group. And then other communities, other counties, some of them are doing grants for grocery stores, like maybe they'll set aside $100,000 and each grocery store can apply for a grant to back pay their employees that were open during the pandemic. The reason why they kind of included this portion of it is it's supposed to act more like a stimulus, supposed to be forward thinking. We invest in the public and then they go and spend it locally and it all comes back, just like the stimulus money that we've received so far. Broadband expansion was another 2-hour topic of the thing. This is the map of Iowa County. White is good, and then blue is bad, green is in the middle. As far as what strength or what speed they have. Governor Reynolds launched the 100 campaign, which is 100 up, 100 down megabit internet across Iowa is what she's looking at. There's, I think, 73 different grants within that you can match these funds for. So just another consideration, not saying we could do that. Collaboration, so we can collaborate with other counties and with other entities. I know that this was brought to my table I think last week. This bike trail was kind of more finalized through Iowa County Community Development. There is an opportunity to use our funds to provide the local match for a grant that they have that's covering 80%, is that what it is? Yes. So there is an opportunity to help make that a go. And I did clarify that Benton and Johnson County could both contribute too. So all 3 counties, if we wanted to do a 3 county-wide project, everybody could contribute to it. And then it's actually more likely to win the grant too if we do multiple counties.
Hold on a minute now, Tabby,
Yeah.
with this bike trail expansion, it's basically, looks to me like it's following that bottom road from Amana to Belle Plaine, isn't it?
Yeah, so
And
that
then
was in the
it follow
Mana,
like the gravel road then,
well, it's in the Mana Society
along
ground.
the river?
Well, it's along the river,
Yeah,
it's like along the levees where possible.
and
A lot
it's
of
not
it is-
finalized.
No, but a lot, so that's the engineering, so they hired an engineer to do all the planning, that's the engineering drawing. If you look at within that, what you have, the document that was sent, it shows what's public lands and what's private land, a lot of it is public land. So I would assume, I don't know who governs the public land, if it's the county or the state, you'd have to have access there. Amana Society has committed to donating the land that crosses Amana Society ground. Belle Plaine is working to bring their trail, or Benton County is working to bring the trail from Belle Plaine to meet this trail, and the same with that Johnson County trail that's been in the works for years. They've got enough to get out through to Oxford, so really connecting all that makes a huge trail, which is a huge, tourism impact.
Yeah, this one, when I talked to, the state auditor about it, he was saying this would be a really good opportunity because we could funnel it under, recreation and tourism. So anyways, not saying we have to do it because there's a lot of questions to be answered yet for sure, but just letting you know that this is an option. Conservation was also one of the things that apparently you can just do whatever you want with the money. I guess like, what was it, Harrison County is building a new $3 million, nature center with their funds. So I guess you can just do whatever you want. Just something to be thinking about. I am in contact with Chris about, are there projects, what are you thinking, you know? So forward thinking, but kind of wrapping it up, we gotta think about our contractors going through the SAM registry, which also I found out, like the engineers that we are having give us quotes on our outside project that we all told Scott to do, you know, the three of them. You remember the three? We have to vet them, and we can't use the money to pay for that engineering cost unless we do the project. So, I told Scott that, so it's something to maybe pause for a second, or just get it and then we can decide from there. Compliancy is a huge thing, and auditing, I did have a couple of questions. Our auditing firm, do they charge by major program, do you know?
If we get so much in federal funds, then we have to pay for single audits.
Okay, cause then we can use the ARP money to pay for that audit, they said, if it's by major program.
Because they already use, some of the watershed money, because it's a federal program, so I do pay for audit. Part
With
of that,
the watershed,
and I
yeah.
make sure that it's okay, but yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like we do the same. And then, so like, I guess where I'm getting at with all of this is, I feel like we've all kind of heard chime in ideas, you know, we've all been approached by somebody from the public or a department, but I've also went to departments and had no idea that we had this money. So I really think it would be important to at least send out, I sent you guys that application, which I can pull up. I sent you guys the application that other counties are using within their internal organization to notify people of what are the criteria of the money that we have here, and to figure out, do we have any projects in our budget right now that this money can be used for? So that's what I wanted on the agenda today, was to discuss that application and putting together an idea for all the department heads, but I'm assuming it's not favorable since it couldn't get on the agenda.
I don't think that it's not favorable, it's just that the pool's gonna dwindle really quick. If you're gonna do the courthouse windows, cause that's $1 million project. The daycare, the kitchen, if you're gonna have to move engineering across, if you're gonna do infrastructure projects.
Well, I'm not saying we have to say yes to all.
No,
But
I
it's
know,
good to get an
but
idea of
that's-
what everybody wants, and I think it's way more fair if we give everybody the same information internally and externally. All the daycares should know that we're considering daycare. All of the businesses that were hit by the pandemic deserve an equal opportunity to present requests. I think, right?
Yeah, that's fine, but, I mean, that pool gets really small if you're gonna,
Well, I'm not saying yes to all of it, but they should
Right.
at least be able to present a request, they should be heard,
sure.
you know? Don't you agree?
Are those requests something that would happen here at supervisor's meeting or separate outside of?
Well, I don't
If that's
think-
something.
I brought up making an organization or a committee to
Yeah.
kind of do a lot of this legwork, so we're not sitting here in the public meeting, you know, doing all of this, but that went
What
nowhere.
if
You're
you,
gonna turn the lights on, are you done?
what if you, as the board of supervisors, because I'm speaking from someone who's been on a committee that hands out money and grants.
Yes.
What if you guys came up with your priorities first, and you said, we're gonna fund these 5 things, and we're gonna allocate this much money to infrastructure, this much to daycare, this much to whatever. It could be 3 things, it could be 5 things, it could be, I don't know, Harrison County must have got a lot more money if they're spending all of it, that's gonna. make
Not all of it's
a lot
going
of
to it,
people
but a good
unhappy.
chunk.
But,
Yeah.
because
No, they're just
the,
trying to avoid using tax dollars,
right,
cause it's free money.
right,
you
so,
don't
but
have
if
to
you,
raise
if
somebody's
you
taxes.
created a priority list that you guys created based on, and you've all gotten public input, we know that, you've talked to your department heads. Because the issue with, I am all for everybody gets a shot, but that will take you literally years. If you let every single business that was impacted by COVID, which is every single business.
Right.
If you let every project that every department head could imagine, well, that will really take a long time. So if you guys first prioritize, these are the things that we feel are the most impactful for the county. You can or cannot come up with a budget for each one of those priorities, and then vet it out from there. Because I think you have to be very strategic in how you go about this, because it is overwhelming when you get, you could end up with, you could end up with over 1,000 requests. That's what in some ways that's unfair, because how are you going to really look at all of those requests equally? Cause that's time consuming, you all have other things to do, and so you'll be like, oh, no, I'm not, that isn't of interest to me, so I might not even read that full. And that happens, so that's just,
Yeah,
a
and I agree.
suggestion.
Yeah, the thing with the department head, the reason why I want them all to be looking at this is because whatever money we can use, I'm gonna give an example, Jessica has $100,000 in her budget for election equipment, it's just all hypothetical, right? What if we do touchless election equipment that we can now put under this because we're mitigating the spread of COVID-19? Well, that's $100,000 in our budget that we can do whatever we want with it.
Right.
No red tape on it, so whatever I can free up within the budget currently is gonna be the best, because then we have it for anything, then we can do our capital investments that we need to next door. And that's why I want the department heads to be looking at what in your budget right now can we creatively put that in there.
So you're looking for them to look at things that they've already earmarked, I've got.
Potentially that would qualify
Right,
for.
like I've got $500,000 in my budget for,
Yeah, and some things that they're already thinking about for next year, like next year I know I need to replace this, I need to replace X, Y, Z. Just be thinking about what are you already planning that we can be
right.
spending this money on.
Do you have a comment, Brett?
No, not really. I have a question, I guess I was curious what the time frame is, the spending.
It has to be committed by 2024, spent and done by 26.
Right. But she's got a project that's ready tomorrow.
We need a budget of that first. To spend.
Okay, yep,
We already have half the money, right?
yes.
In the bank account.
The other half
They've
for
already
next
sent it.
year, yeah.
We've had it for a month.
And then Treasurer has designated a separate account for that because we can keep the interest. on
Yeah,
that.
even
So
if we don't
that-
get to spend the money, we keep the interest.
That's even earmarked separately.
We're not planning on giving money back.
No.
Just to let you know, that's not even an option that we're thinking about, so.
So my question is, city council, the sheriff's department with their money that was, over budgeted.
Cities got their own money.
Yes, so like with something like that, they had a lot of extra money that the police department that went towards an off-road vehicle that a lot of people were upset about. If we're freeing up money within departments and it gets used for something like that people get upset
You're
about.
talking about a city, right? Cause that's not in my jurisdiction.
Right, I'm just saying, like, if you're freeing up money in departments,
Right.
whereas like the city, or the police decided to use it for an off-road vehicle that a lot of people did not agree with.
Right.
Are we just freeing up money in departments? How do you know that the money you're freeing up is going to be used towards?
That is a political football, yes.
Yes.
Hi, here we are.
Sorry.
That would be us overseeing that, you know, like, cause we do sign off on the budget.
Yep.
Ultimately, so,
Not that budget.
not that one, no.
Well, right.
Just make that totally clear. That was a city.
Just rather than people coming with projects, new
Right.
projects like this for the money to go towards.
Yes, there's not enough money to make everybody happy. That's the end of the day.
Right.
And it falls on us to
And no matter what
make
you
the
do,
decision. Yeah, you're-
whatever
you're right.
decision you
There's
make,
winners
there's
and
gonna be
losers.
someone who
Yes.
doesn't get money that will be mad.
That comes with the job.
I'd rather see our capital improvements that we need to do within the county get
Yes.
done without raising any levies or taxes.
Yes.
Right.
Stuff that we need to have done was the examples we were getting earlier.
Yeah, the windows, and then our courthouse has really bad water issues, that's gonna be 400,000-ish, maybe more.
But we can't, that doesn't fall in, does it?
But if you free up money in the budget, like $100,000 of her election equipment, that $100,000 we
Then
can,
you transition management, you know. Yeah.
Creative accounting.
Putting it
At
in
the end of the
one
day, we're
pocket,
trying to
yeah.
save
Yeah.
taxpayer money.
ultimately.
Or
At the end of
the jail thing.
It's still your money that
That
we're
money-
getting in this 3 million.
The money will get burned up in a hurry.
Yeah.
The jail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cause that thing is trying to fall down.
So I don't, that's what I'm saying, we need to sit down internally and figure out what internally, is there any money left over?
That's,
I don't know.
I'll get there real quick.
I think that, can we, as a board, ask that we meet with all our department heads together in one single meeting?
You can have them all come to our meeting.
Over this, I mean, together at one time, we're not saying it 10 different times, we say it once to all of them. And we have a special meeting, or they come here on Friday, we discuss it,
Come on Friday,
whatever. But I really feel we need to get them involved.
Would it be agreeable for me to send out that application first so they can look and see what the guidelines are, and then at that meeting, they come and talk about, yeah, I saw this in the rules, like, this would be,
They would need to have somewhat of a plan, so you're not sitting there for 3 hours.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
that's what I'm
They need to
saying.
know what they're coming in for.
I don't have to
and
repeat
what-
what we can use it for.
We're not coming in with a wish list.
Like,
Well,
give
they're
them
not
so
coming
many
in for
minutes.
things that don't apply.
Right. It's not, it's irrelevant to the project and to the scope and to how the funds can be used. Cause it is wide open, but it's specifically wide open, so.
Well, it's government money, there's
Yeah.
always going to be.
It's wide open until they audit you, then they're like, oh, no, actually, you couldn't do that.
That's, I mean, this was pretty free for the most part. You know, they just wanna get the money out there because they don't care. So,
Okay, well, I'll send
there's
it out.
money. Yep.
So do you wanna put that on the agenda sometime? Can we put that on the agenda?
I
You're
guess
gonna
the
have to-
biggest thing with the new auditor, they may not be up to speed on
Right.
everything, so I
Right.
guess, you know, a little bit of patience.
But if she's sending out the guidelines to them,
Right.
maybe in a couple of weeks, so they have time to go through the guidelines to see what they can actually apply for.
I don't think we wanna do it for next week.
No, that's what I
Because I
mean,
don't-
because there's not enough time for them to look at it and then to look at, I mean,
Do we want them to submit,
because it'll be a wish list of conservation.
well, yeah, do we want them to submit their ideas to us prior to the meeting so we can look through them and then discuss? Or,
Would this be more of an education, this first go around, educating what is going on? They're all up here in the headlights, they don't know what's going on with this thing.
I'd rather do them ahead of time so we can think about it, or I'd rather be able to even think about it.
or do we do what Alan said, an education type thing? I send it to them, don't tell them to fill it out, but these are the rules, and then we'll discuss,
You can have them contact you with questions.
yeah. Maybe just, so ahead of time?
Yeah,
I'd like to have them do a reply all, so we can see what all of the questions are to all of us, so we can see it.
Is there a way that you could, instead of pulling together a meeting, could you just like how we're gonna give a presentation today, can you just record that, send that to everybody, and then they would be more knowledgeable coming back?
Well, there's webinars, I could send them.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's tons of
Yeah.
webinars.
I'll send a whole thing of stuff. So So we wanna do it like the 24th and have applications due the 17th? September?
I know.
Vicky, does that look to you? I wish it was still June, not almost September.
What time do we put it on the agenda? Probably at the end, we will, or,
That's the problem right now.
we don't
Well,
know.
it can be fluid right at the moment, just if we just
Yeah,
pencil it
okay.
in, you know, we can set the time closer to when we know what else is going on.
Okay.
Who are they supposed to be sending these applications into, who's collecting them, us?
I'd say the supervisor's
Yeah.
email.
Supervisor's email?
And so I don't have to read some of them.
No, but if they've got individual questions, I'd assume have them contact you
Yeah,
and let you know.
about compliance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I want a year out of the conservation, so I mean, and it falls in the guidelines.
Well, you give it directly to farmers. I know a couple farmers.
Retail was really hurt by COVID.
You need a year? That's, yeah, I mean, that's what I said, you get into that real quick and,
Right, you could give, I mean.
and that's not gonna make a lasting impact.
Right,
I mean, I
every
could-
business was affected.
Yeah.
You can't differentiate.
But daycare's a lasting,
I'd have to say though, I know a guy that owns a grocery store, it was the best year he's ever had.
Well, yeah.
When you said-
And,
Well, the
I would say
workers,
too-
the frontline workers.
Okay, it's again, she goes even if I'm.
I would say
We're-
that the
we'll
home
be back.
grocery stores made a killing during COVID as well.
And they didn't give it to the employees.
Schwann's man did really well.
Yes, they did give it to the employees.
So
Yes,
some did.
My son got a raise
He did?
because he was at Big G and Garth took care of him.
That's good.
So you better know
Yeah.
what you're talking
Well, I
about before
talked
you
to
throw
two
a statement
others.
out there.
Sorry, I talked to two others that did,
oh,
two other grocery stores. I didn't know that one.
okay,
So,
Yeah, he is good.
okay. All right, let's move on to finish up our stuff. Are you done with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Liquor license, I don't have any, really.
Nope.
Next payroll, still don't have a Hartford Township, application for fireworks, Terry, yours?
Yep.
Got a motion to approve,
Motion to approve.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Let the party begin. Unless, Hunger Month, you guys got the proclamation?
Motion to make it Hunger Month
Yes.
and authorize you to sign it.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Alright.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
I read this audit request. I don't understand. What is this 14.26 number?
It's just, we have spent over $750,000 in federal funds for FY '21, so we will have to
As
do
a
a
county
audit.
whole,
Yeah,
not a specific.
because it's federal funds, this watershed is federal funds, so.
So who does that audit?
Our regular auditing firm, and then they pay for part of the cost for the single audit from the watershed money.
Okay,
Same thing that we're gonna do with the ARP.
alright, thank you for clearing that up.
So it will be required because we have spent that, more than that amount on watershed projects. Yeah.
We do.
Oh.
So I can sign that.
And have John sign it.
Restart. Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Anything for next week? No.
I don't, not at this point.
I sent out how we figured out the revenue last
Yes.
night. Did anybody have questions on it? I also sent an email that we received regarding our interim report. We can amend our revenue
That's good.
if So,
Right.
at this time, I'm gonna go ahead and complete that report with the numbers, not, not where I had the numbers, but I'm just trying to have a start. So I'm going to go ahead and file that interim report, so we are in compliance and we're done with that for now, so.
Thank you.
And I would just reiterate, the engineer has been through all the ARP money and he has several ways to spend it. If we don't get it spent, he can spend it.
I'm sure.
So,
Infrastructure, well, they said to hold off on the infrastructure
I
stuff,
know,
because we got the
but
other
he's
one
got,
coming.
yeah, he's been asking for months already, like, just in case there's extra money.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thanks, everyone. I'm guessing we'll get to work on, see what we're gonna do.